tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
All right, it's time to weave out the lies so we can get to the facts. President Trump just absolutely gutted the IRS. And no, I'm not kidding. The Trump administration, alongside the Department of Government Efficiency, has continued to put pressure on the IRS. So much pressure, in fact, that just yesterday afternoon, 31% of the IRS's tax auditors resigned because of budget cuts and downsizing. Now, as many of you know, when President Donald Trump got back into the White House, he signed an executive order completely halting new Internal Revenue Service hiring. He's also slowly stripped away at the agency's budget, working with the Department of Government Efficiency to surgically target inefficiencies and waste. And so now, as a result, the Internal Revenue Service is massively downsizing, with 31% of its tax auditors resigning yesterday due to the ongoing pressure from the Trump administration. And so, for months now, the Department of Government Efficiency has been absolutely relentless, slashing Internal Revenue Service waste to finally create an accountable tax agency. So really, these resignations just prove how much waste there really was. And then, of course, we can contrast this with the Democrats' approach led by former President Joe Biden and his Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. They together pushed to hire 87,000 new IRS agents, aiming to impose countless new audits on the middle class. Here's the reality. Former President Joe Biden's plan, they wanted to squeeze every single last penny from hardworking Americans. And to do that, they created an audit surge which targeted small businesses and middle-income Americans, suffocating them under the bureaucratic weight of the federal government. President Donald Trump, however, is doing the exact opposite. His vision prioritizes economic freedom, slashing the IRS in order to empower everyday Americans rather than subjugate them. In fact, I want you all to take a look at what President Trump had to say about all of this just the other day.
In a lot of jobs, a lot of plants and factories. So we're going to make a lot of money, and we're going to cut taxes for the people of this country. And it's possible we'll do a complete tax cut, because I think the tariffs will be enough to cut all of the income tax. And we're going to start with people making less than $200,000 a year.
So, President Trump's plan is to entirely remove the federal income tax for every single American making $200,000 per year or less. President Donald Trump's goal to abolish the federal income tax for Americans earning under $200,000 is absolutely revolutionary. It promises unprecedented economic freedom, ultimately unshackling millions of Americans across the country from government overreach, which will really just unleash the American economy. I mean, get this. 95% of Americans earn $200,000 per year or less, yet their taxes account for only 28% of federal income tax revenue every year. So, President Trump sees a massive tax break for 95% of Americans, really, with minimal revenue loss. Here's his strategy: high tariffs on foreign goods that can entirely replace that 28% loss in federal income tax revenue. And on top of that, these tariffs are already proven to be successful. They're shielding American industries from predatory global competition while also funding domestic American tax relief. And as many of you know, President Trump's tariffs have already been able to secure over $5 trillion worth of domestic American manufacturing investments, with another $2 trillion in the pipeline. So, here's the facts. This tax cut would unleash consumer spending, spur on American job creation, and massively increase economic growth. By removing the income tax for 95% of Americans, President Donald Trump would propel the nation toward a level of prosperity that, frankly, we haven't seen in generations. But now, very predictably, the radical progressives are absolutely losing their minds. They're claiming that President Donald Trump's IRS cuts will just balloon the national deficit, which is obviously incompetent because already, thanks to the work of the Trump administration and the Department of Government Efficiency, we are seeing our federal budget actually shrink for the first time in years. For decades, Democrats, including former President Joe Biden, preached tax cuts for the middle class while also actively working to screw over the middle class. So now, as President Trump is actually doing it, they're panicking because their progressive hypocrisy is getting exposed. And here's the reality. America just gave President Trump a massive mandate to do exactly what he's doing right now: gut the IRS, cut the federal budget, and actually work on behalf of the middle class here in America, as opposed to a bunch of radically progressive globalists. And so, as we are seeing already, President Donald Trump's tariffs are generating unprecedented revenue, easily offsetting his proposed tax cuts on the middle class. In contrast, when the Democrats controlled the country, they just worked tirelessly to expand the Internal Revenue Service and to punish working class Americans. You know what? This isn't really even about taxes. It's more so about freedom. President Donald Trump's IRS reforms embody the concept of America First, dismantling oppressive systems to uplift hardworking Americans. By downsizing the IRS and working to remove the federal income tax for 95% of Americans, President Trump really is the first president in decades to seriously prioritize Main Street instead of Wall Street. Very clearly, President Trump is working towards serious, genuine tax relief for the vast majority of Americans, and really, his tariffs are the reason why his plan is actually going to work. President Trump just barely got back in office, but already his tariffs are generating tens of millions of dollars per month. So keep in mind, despite how much the radical progressives are melting down about all of this right now, President Trump really is putting America first with these policies.
Don't be afraid to subscribe to the channel. Like the video if you found it informative. Hell, even share it with your family and friends. And let's talk about it in the comments here on Facts Only.